Hi. That's terrible. That's terrible. So it turns out if you hit the wrong button, see, I think of these things as interchangeable. Like if I go live, I think I'm streaming, but apparently, you either have to hit the stream button or the go live button because the stream button then it's looking for like OBS or something else. It's looking for some sort of external something or other to make you go live. And I hit the stream button, and so it's all like, well, all right, well, I'm looking for something, I can't find it. Meanwhile, I'm sitting here in front of the camera going, hey, why don't we do the thing we always do? And Google was like, no. So sorry about having to move everybody over. And then I don't know what happened. For some reason, my camera wouldn't start, and it just sat there and sat there and sat there. And so I had to refresh the screen, hoping that I wouldn't lose everyone. John was very kind, and he did a roll call earlier. I'm assuming that's copied from the other room because he says that Hank, Bill, Webb got your cartoon, Webb. That was funny. I like that a lot, actually. Yeah, Hank, Bill, Webb, Eugene, John, who is, of course, John, Brian, Andrew, Frank, Donna, Paul, Baby Yoda. Baby Yoda's here. It's pronounced Grogu. And maybe me on the other stream. Yeah. So other people are turning up. That's great. I'm sorry for the confusion. We're running behind now. Why don't we do a show or something like it? Siri, HomePods Max, and what we should be talking about. It is Wednesday, the 16th of December, 2020, and this is macOS Ken Live. I was all excited too. See, people who, hi everybody, it's Ken Ray welcoming you to another edition of macOS Ken Live. This thing that we theoretically do at 3:30 Eastern, nope, 3:30 Pacific, 6:30 Eastern every day, sometimes a tiny bit late. Here's what's cool. The people listening to the audio podcast have no idea. They're just like, hey, it's right here whenever it should be. Second half of the show, we're going to talk about trouble and a warning with HomePods Max. Now, listen, I don't want you to panic because none of this is actually a real problem, but it struck me as amusing. So we'll talk about that in the second half of the show. First half of the show, though, I want to talk about my future best friend. I want to talk about a best friend that is being built for me right before our eyes. Now, I know we should be talking about other things. Facebook, for example, took out a full page ad in a bunch of newspapers today, beating up on Apple, saying that Apple's ATT, that is the app tracking transparency, this is the thing basically that was supposed to come out in iOS 14. It's coming out early next year, where every time you go from one app to another app, if that app wants to track you from one app to another or one place to another, it's going to ask you, is that okay with you? It's going to say, and you are then free to say, yes, that is fine with me. Go ahead, let it track me. You can, of course, also say, no, I would really rather it not track me. It's kind of funny how desperate on this whole thing Facebook is actually getting, because initially they were like, look, doesn't matter to us. It's fine. We're not going to lose any real money. We're concerned about the small businesses. And they keep being concerned about the small businesses, so much so that you begin to wonder if maybe they aren't just a tiny bit concerned about themselves, whether it's the money that they would lose from ad revenue, whether it is the fact that a bunch of small businesses will stop advertising on Facebook, or hey, here's a possibility. Maybe Facebook is really upset that it won't be able to track you across apps. And it's using small businesses as a prop. Facebook's got full page ads today in the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the Wall Street Journal saying we're standing up to Apple for small businesses everywhere. And nothing says standing up for small business like full page ads in the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the Wall Street Journal. Big believer in small business, the Wall Street Journal. Check it out. We should be talking about that today, but we're not. We're not talking about that today. That'll be on tomorrow's macOS Ken, and we may talk about it tomorrow. We should be talking about the fact that major U.S. news publishers are joining the Coalition for App Fairness. DCN. This is the Digital Content Next. It's an organization that represents the AP, the New York Times, NPR, ESPN, Vox, The Washington Post, Meredith, Bloomberg, NBC Universal, The Financial Times, and a bunch of other news organizations. They are now joining the Coalition for App Fairness. You remember them. That's the people started by Epic, right? Saying Apple is unfair to app developers. App developers like The Financial Times, apparently. DCN has joined in saying they're pleased to join the Coalition for App Fairness, working to establish a fair and competitive digital landscape. The premium publisher members of DCN enjoy trusted direct relationships with consumers who don't expect intermediaries to impose arbitrary fees and rules which limit their ability to consume the news and entertainment they love. You know, those guys should start a newspaper. Just a thought. We should talk about that. We're not going to talk about that today, though. We could talk about the proposed regulations for the EU. We actually should talk about that. We could talk about Epic wanting to put Craig Federighi on the stand. None of that is what we're talking about today. What we're talking about today is the fact that you can now ask Siri what a humpback whale sounds like, and Siri will tell you. No, I take it back. Siri will play that for you. And that is seriously the thing that I want to talk about today. This, to me, is an incredibly exciting story. And it goes back to what we talked about a few weeks ago when I think it was the Financial Times ran a piece saying Apple is building a Google competitor. And somebody here, I can't remember if it was Vern or if it was, it escapes me right now who it was, might have been Hank. But somebody here said, I like the idea of Apple making a Google competitor. I don't like the idea, which was the one that I put out there, that all the search stuff that Apple was doing, and in fairness, this is actually the idea that Apple put out there, that all the search stuff that Apple is doing is to make Siri better. Whoever it was I was talking to said that they like sitting down at a keyboard and typing in what it is that they're looking for. That's the way they do it. They don't think to talk to Siri. They don't think to say, hey, you tell me this thing, tell me that thing. And I think a lot of the reason that we don't do that is probably because it used to suck. It would most often say, I don't know, or I don't understand, or it would search for the wrong thing, or it would say, here's what I found on the web. And now it's getting smarter. And I don't know if that's John Gianandrea. I don't know if that's just the machine learning stuff they're doing. And I say just the machine learning stuff they're doing. And that's what Gianandrea is doing. Kind of interesting, the news rumor last week that he is now in charge of the car. He's now in charge of Project Titan, which the more you hear about it, the less likely it seems that Apple's going to actually build a car. They're going to make a car work. And they may eventually build a car, but I don't think it's going to be a car that you and I are going to be able to buy, maybe. Who knows? The quote that everybody kept going back to when they talked about the fact that Gianandrea was now in charge of the car project was one where Tim Cook said that they look at autonomous driving as one of the biggest AI challenges out there. Well, then you put your big AI guy on that, don't you? They seem to have let Bob Mansfield slip out quietly this time. I don't remember what his title was originally, but he was an executive at Apple who left, and then there was a problem with Project Titan, and they very famously brought him back in. He didn't leave; he retired. He quit. He didn't quit Apple. He retired after 20-something years there, I believe. And somebody in the chat room, I'm sure, can correct me on when that was. But then they brought him back in to sort of run the car thing. And then we haven't really heard much about the car thing for a while until this week or last week when we heard that Gianandrea was going to be leading that and still leading all of the other machine learning AI stuff that Apple is doing. Not that he's the only one. There are plenty of other people there doing that. One of the articles that I read about it, though, basically said that, and Bob Mansfield is apparently not doing that anymore. And that's it. Let him leave quietly, which is great. Because he wanted to leave before. And like Michael Corleone, they kept pulling him back in. All right, so he's going to be working on the car thing. I'm still just totally turned on by this Siri thing. And I know it's crazy that the thing that really turns me on about it is the fact that you can ask it about the animal noises. But seriously, have you tried it? because there are two things that happen. First of all, it's not just animals, there's also different modes of transportation. Like I asked it about a train without knowing whether it could play me a train sound, and it played me a train sound. It'd be great if it could play me a train in the distance, but it actually can because that's a Paul Simon song. I could have asked it about that a year ago and it could do that, but now it can just play me a train. Just be careful, don't tell it to play train because then you're listening to music. If you say to it, "Hey, you," or if you push the button on your phone and say, "What does a train sound like?" It will say, "Here's what a train sounds like," and it'll play it, which I'm sorry is very Fisher Price, right? I mean, it's like that thing that used to turn around and pull the string and it would say, "This is a duck." Except that it's doing it in a very conversational way and it's doing it in a very sort of amorphous way. Now, the thing that I found most interesting, I know I keep saying it's the fact that it's playing the sounds. That's not actually what I found most interesting. I was just trying out different sounds on the phone, asked it to play. Well, so I messed up. The Apple Insider piece, I think it was Apple Insider that ran this piece. The Apple Insider piece that I read said that you can ask Siri what a humpback whale sounds like. And I said to Siri, um, what does a blue whale sound like? And it started reading a bunch of stuff to me, and I didn't care because I wanted to hear the humpback whale sound. And I realized, oh, it's because it wasn't a blue whale, it was a humpback whale. So then I said again, I said it right that time. I said, what does a humpback whale sound like? And it said, here's what it is. And it played it on my HomePod, which was neat. All the stuff that it was reading to me is what I really should have been impressed by, because when I said, what does a blue whale sound like? It started describing to me what a blue whale sounds like. It didn't say, here's what I found on the web. It didn't say, you'll need to unlock your iPhone first. It said, from the whatever website, a blue whale makes it sound like blah, blah, blah. And it started explaining it to me in a conversational way. I didn't really grok that that's what was happening until I asked it last night, what does a robin sound like? And it told me what ornithological website it was going to. And then it started describing to me what a robin sounds like, the kind of noise a robin makes. And now we've gone from, why don't you look it up, to let me tell you what you want to know. And that's an amazing thing to see happen. 5 years ago, 4 years ago, if we had asked Siri that question, it would have said, here's what I found on the web. I was talking to somebody about this earlier. It's like suddenly turning around and there's a 12-year-old in your house, right? Or an 8-year-old or whatever. But I mean, somebody who used to not be able to walk. Siri is growing slowly. It's growing in ways that amaze if you stop to think about it. The thing is, it all happens so gradually. I know I've told the story here before. I used to go to dinner at the same place every Friday night. Every Friday night, I would go to the same place. I would pick up dinner. I'd go home. I'd have my dinner. And about the fourth or fifth week of my doing that in a row, I'm putting my phone up on my dash to listen to something or something. And right there on the screen, it said, it will take you about 7 minutes to get to that restaurant you go to every Friday night. Not quite as conversational, but it had picked up on it and now it was anticipating what I wanted to do. And that's more natural. And that's kind of neat. What happened yesterday with the noises for Siri is incredible to me because it's just one of those little things that you look at it and you're like, wow, do you remember when you couldn't even stand up? Remember when you couldn't make words? And now look at you wandering around anticipating what I want to do and telling me more about what I want to know than I realized you could do. I started thinking about the kinds of things this could do going forward. And now this is where you could talk about the EU again, because the EU has said, hey, hold on, big tech. If you ever want to buy anything ever again, you have to let us know first. Also, if you're going to build anything that's going to compete with anything, you're going to have to be careful how you present that information. It's almost like they want people who make phones to make phones and do nothing else for those phones. Honestly, I wonder if someday they're going to try to make people be able to run different operating systems on the hardware that's sold by Apple. But that's further down the road. I was thinking about things like in a quiet moment when I'm not doing anything, when I'm not going anywhere, could Siri say, "Hey, you haven't practiced Spanish in a while. You wanna do a quick 5 minutes? Could Apple buy Duolingo and start teaching that way, or could Apple integrate somehow Siri with things like Duolingo or Rosetta or whatever other language things are out there and start, nudging us towards maybe, being more intelligent or knowing more? What about meditation? They could buy Buddhify or Headspace or whatever, because and I know I've been talking about Headspace on macOS Ken because they are a sponsor of macOS Ken. They're not a sponsor of this show. That 1 minute of breathing thing is just dumb. That 1 minute of breathing thing that happens on your watch, I've always tried to do it, but I always feel like, "Oh, I'm doing it wrong. I don't know what I'm doing." And it's like, "Hey, you were mindful." And it's always, "Yeah, I'm mindful of the fact that I feel like an idiot and don't know what I'm doing." If they were to bring in something else, if they were to fold in, I mean, maybe they do their own, like they're doing with the Fitness Plus thing, right? They didn't buy Peloton. They didn't buy or partner with anybody who was already out there doing fitness stuff. They're doing it on their own. Heck, they have a great relationship with Nike, and still they went with Fitness Plus on their own. Maybe they could do something like that as well, so that your phone then starts saying, "Hey, you want to take 5 minutes to just, zen, to zone, to lose focus and focus on losing the focus and all that stuff." You can tell I'm really good at meditation. There are all kinds of things that this could do the more natural it gets. And of course, you can tell it no. The first time it asks you, "Do you want to meditate?" You could say no and never ask me again. And then it wouldn't. "Do you want to practice Spanish?" "No, I'm busy." "No, I want to practice Russian." I mean, it doesn't have to drive you in any one direction. It just the level of natural conversation, the level of things that they could tie in and they could do, it feels to me like is growing. It's growing like a 10-year-old. And when I say growing like a 10-year-old, I mean in that you don't notice from day to day. Or if you've got a dog, I mean, if you got a puppy and you just bring the puppy home, it's very puppy. Once a puppy gets to about 9 or 10 months, you kind of start losing track of the changes that are going on. Then you look back 2 years later, and what you've got is a full grown dog, right? That's kind of even starting to maybe get a little gray and a tiny bit, and like it's settled into being a grown up. We're on that journey with Siri. And yeah, I got all of that from being able to ask it, "What does a humpback whale sound like?" And that's the most exciting thing today to me. That is the most exciting thing today. The rest of it, the EU saying, "Hey, big tech better watch itself." Okay, Apple can make Siri so good that it doesn't matter what the EU says. You want to put Spotify on there? That's fine. You want to put Spotify above Apple Music? That's great. You want to go ahead and concern yourself with all these other, like little things like this one video service versus the other? That's fine. What if you gave people a personal assistant that was so personal, so intuitive, so anticipatory that none of that other stuff matters? You wouldn't even think about it. As long as the EU doesn't say you have to put Alexa on there as well, and whatever Google calls its thing, and Cortana. Is Cortana still a thing? I don't know. I'm excited. There. I'm excited. It's much better to talk about things you're excited about than things you're angry about, I think. It's fun to find those. Coming up in just a minute, we'll do a couple of dumb stories about the AirPods Max. I know I made it sound like it was a big thing. It's not a big thing. I mean, they are big things, but that's not what I mean. First, though, about tomorrow's edition of the checklist, brought to you by Secure Mac. Evil doesn't sleep. There are a couple of scams that we're going to be talking about tomorrow. Actually, a few different scams, but they fall into two categories. One, as we rocket towards Christmas, which is like, what, 9 days away, 8 days away, I think. There are lots of scams that people are pulling having to do with like physical packages. So things like leaving a tag on your door and telling you to call a number. And it turns out calling that number costs you money, but it's not disclosed until you've already made a $50 phone call. Stuff like that. There are a few scams that are showing back up. We're going to talk about those in the first half of the show. And then second half of the show, we're going to talk about scams tied to the coronavirus vaccine, because they're out there. The vaccine is barely out there, but the scammers never sleep. So yeah, We'll talk about some of the scams out there and how to avoid them on checklist number 211, brought to you by Secure Mac. You can find that wherever you get podcasts. Just search for The Checklist by Secure Mac or search for Secure Mac. You should be able to find it that way wherever you get podcasts, or you can go to the show's website, securemac.com/checklist, and share that one with friends, because I know you're smart enough that you won't be taken, but you need to let everybody else know too, because even though you think all of your friends are smart enough, there is somebody that you know who could fall prey. So, checklist, Secure Mac. Tell your friends. We'll wrap up with just a couple of dumb stories about the AirPods Max. This one's kind of a bummer. So if you hopped right on it, if you ordered immediately your AirPods Max, you were probably really excited that you were going to have them yesterday. And then they didn't show up yesterday, and you thought, well, they're definitely going to be there by today. And it turns out they're going back to Apple in some cases. This is from a piece in Apple Insider. Some customers in Canada and the US are reportedly being notified by UPS that their AirPods Max, will not be delivered because they contain hazardous materials. Boom, boom, boom. The hazardous materials irregularity occurred with this package, says the UPS shipping notification sent to multiple buyers in Canada. We'll contact the sender with additional information. The package will be returned to the sender. I was talking to somebody who said, man, maybe they didn't have it labeled properly. And I thought, hey, not labeled is great. You can send anything if you don't say what's in it. Apparently that's not the case. Kind of a bummer. Neither UPS nor Apple have commented on the issue. Yeah, it was Apple Insider actually said it's possible that the problem is to do with the labeling and that these particular AirPods Max shipments do not have the required warnings about batteries. Kind of weird, right? I always assume that when the post office asks me, is there anything in there, that they're just taking my word for it. But apparently it would have a proper label. Thus, when it gets to whatever scanning something or other, and it says, hey, there's a battery in here. Well, there's a label on there that there's a battery, so it's fine. Other thing, by the way, about your $549 over-the-ear fancy schmancy headphones, they are neither waterproof nor water resistant. Now, at $550, I don't think you would expect them to be. But it is a warning that is out there to people. These things are apparently incredibly heavy, according to feedback, both that I've read online and also that I received by email from somebody yesterday. I can't remember who emailed this yesterday, but he said they feel, significantly heavy. Not the kind of thing you're likely to take out running. And even if you were likely to take out running, barring the weight, they're $550. So now there's a new reason not to do anything with them except for sit quietly and listen to really appreciate the sound. If you're sweating to the oldies and these things, you're sweating to a busted pair of headphones at some point. And that is advice for everybody who got the AirPods Max, which I would imagine is 5 or 6 people listening to this. Actually, we did hear that one email. I would be curious to hear from anybody else who got them as well, how you're liking them, what you think. Were yours returned for being improperly labeled? You can, of course, leave a comment on this video. You can also email me, info@macoscan.com. That is INFO, info@macoscan.com. Quick heads up. There is going to be a macOS Ken Live on Thursday. There is not going to be a macOS Ken Live on Friday. I got some stuff I got to do in the middle of the day, which is when this happens for me. So unfortunately, that's going to preclude that, but we'll be back next week with more shows. So yes, there is a macOS Ken Live on Thursday. No, there is no macOS Ken Live on Friday. You will have to find another way to spend your afternoon. I am sorry. We do have, in a few minutes, kicking off tomorrow morning, got macOS Ken kicking off tomorrow morning. The checklist by Secure Mac will be there tomorrow morning, and we will be back here tomorrow afternoon. And I will talk to you soon. I'm baking the cake for our robot overlords. All right. Did everybody say I was crazy when I was getting all excited about all that stuff? I'm curious. I have to go check the chat room now. Not have to. Best part of my day. So get to is what I should say. Thought I had something on my head. Turns out it was the cursor. Sorry about the problem at the beginning. Everybody having to switch over and all that stuff. I know I started off talking a lot about the stuff that we weren't going to talk about. I'm glad you enjoyed that, Eugene. I'll bet there could be some hilarious fake ads making fun of Facebook's attack on Apple. Small business. You know what? You know what they should have done? They should have bought in the Nashville, Tennessee, and they should have bought in the Bloom County Picayune. They should have bought in the Oroville Express, whatever. You're full of it. If you're going to make a case that what you're concerned about is small business and you throw your ad dollars, they didn't even go USA Today. They went Washington Post, New York Times, Wall Street Journal. You concerned about small business? Spend some money with small businesses, you schmoes. Sorry. Yeah, that's a good point, Bill. Facebook posted full page newspaper ads. Then the newspapers joined the coalition. Hey, that is interesting. Is Facebook part of the coalition for app decency or whatever the heck, excuse me, it's called? Humpback whales, right? Eugene tested it with the humpback whales. Kind of awesome. If you ask it what the fox says, though, it goes tee 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 tee, you know, like the song. I love that. Eugene says he's going to spend the evening asking Siri different animals to see which ones it knows. I would imagine that's going to be an evolving thing. I mean, they've got to be adding sounds like constantly, I would think. It doesn't even sound like this was something that probably somebody at Apple told somebody on the sly, hey, this is a thing this does, because it doesn't sound like anything that Apple announced. And yet I want to say the Apple Insider says it was CNBC that spotted it. Yeah, there's somebody at CNBC sitting around asking Siri a bunch of questions, trying to figure out what it can do. Still, I like it. Interesting. MN Searcher says, ask what a dog sounds like, and it'll give you random dogs each time. It says eat time up there, but I'm pretty sure it meant each. What's interesting, though, try asking for different breeds, because the Apple Insider piece did say you could ask what a toy poodle sounds like, and it'll play that. And I did try that, and it was horribly yippy. Yeah. Now, I don't know if that would work for cats. I think if you say, what does a cat sound like? It'll just tell you what a cat sounds like. It'll play it for you, as opposed to, I don't think you'd be like, what does a blue point Siamese sound like? What about a Maine Coon? What does that sound like? What about an alley cat? What does Web sound like? Yeah. What does Web sound like? What does Ken Ray sound like, please? You got 15 plus years of recordings to let you know that. The problem, Matthew, was not what it acted like when it was asked to make tea. The problem was when Arthur said, why do you think I want it? Oh, there it is. You got to the second part. You'll ask a question. It'll lock up all connected devices till it comes up with the answer to the inquiry. That's funny. You end up at the restaurant at the end of the universe, though, so that's not the worst. Actually, you have to go to Magrathea first. Will Siri be a troublesome teenager? Maybe. Webb says he uses Siri with his home automation. See, this is another thing that's interesting to me about this animal thing. I think if they do stuff like this and get people to try it, then people might start trying Siri for other stuff. I was actually amused by the first time that you could ask Siri things like, How do you hide a body? I mean, when they were doing stuff that was obviously jokes, at first I thought it was kind of funny, but then I thought they need to stop that because if they want this to be a thing that people actually turn to for real information, if they want this to be a thing that people actually use, that becomes a valuable part of their life, it needs to be serious and not just, completely straight laced serious. Like it'll still do the what does the fox thing say, for example, or what does the fox say thing, for example. But it needs to not be gimmicky. There was some promotional tie in that they had one time too. I can't remember what it was. And they don't seem to have done a lot of those. And that's good because if it just becomes like a joke machine or a, talking billboard, then you lose the game, I think. Use a curse word and it develops an attitude, says Frank. That is true. Oh, what about the Her movie? Her movie was kind of interesting, although that was a distributed network. My assumption is that they're all going to be as smart as Siri, but that my information is going to live here, although anonymized, whatever. See, I thought about her. I thought about the Her movie when you said that. I've only seen it the one time, but I think I have it because it was on sale for like $5. So I might have to watch it again in light of this conversation. Hmm. Brian says if you think about how a child learns, what they say in their first years of life is so primitive, then learn to connect various things around them, sensory, with facts that can be looked up, then they really can make complex thoughts similar to the growth of AI assistants like Siri. Here, here. This is what I'm saying, except it took me, 15 minutes to say what Brian said in about 8 lines. Harry says he forgets what Siri can do, but he does remember the frustration trying to use it. Yeah, I get that. Oh, and everything just jumped down for me. Hold on. Oh, Bill had to go. Sorry about that, Bill. Gotta go paint a Grogo. Can you mow a lawn with them? Oh, okay. Sorry, you guys were talking about. I was like, can you mow a lawn with what? I don't know. Do you work up a sweat mowing the lawn? If not, then yes. If yes, then no. I wouldn't shovel a driveway with them because I know I used to get bundled up, like to the nines to go out and shovel because it was like 20 something degrees outside. And then by the time I was done, I had to come in and take well, not everything, but take a lot of stuff off because I'd, sweat into the snow beasts. Isn't Facebook responsible for the death of many small businesses and a couple of democracies, from what I hear? I don't know. Maybe. Do you count MySpace as a small business? Didn't you do a show with Era Derderian from HT Guy's podcast about home automation or something recently? I don't believe so. Generally speaking, if I'm going to do home automation stuff, I'm turning to Richard Gunther. He has hosted a show for years called, yay, I can't remember the name. It's the Digital Media Zone is the name of the network that has had several shows on it. I believe right now it only has 2. Home On, I believe, is his home automation show. And I can't remember what the entertainment show that he has is called. Might be Entertainment 2.0. Home On, though, Richard is the person I tend to talk to for that just because he's the guy I know who knows a lot about home automation. That said, I'd be curious, are you recommending the Matthew, or are you just trying to remember where you heard it? That's what I was saying, Eugene. I wonder if Eugene says, I wonder if Apple is doing machine learning at their end to shape the responses. People learn about whale sounds, start asking more questions, then Siri builds future responses. It's an interesting question. Finding out the kind of things that people will ask Siri for, which again, I think is why you do something like this, where you get people remembering, oh, yeah, oh, that's neat. Hey, I wonder if it knows this, as long as it's not, where do you hide a body? Or how? Not where. Everybody knows where. These are horrible jokes. These are the jokes that Siri used to do that I say they should not have done. I'm just illustrating that horrible thing that used to happen. Yeah, that must have been somebody else, Matthew. It might have been Adam. I don't know. All right. Siri's jokes are terrible, by the way. I mentioned here a few weeks ago that there's a 10-year-old in the house who kept asking Siri. Once I moved the HomePod downstairs, who kept asking Siri for jokes, and then she would complain about how bad the jokes were. I have not told her yet that you can ask Siri to make noises because I do like a modicum of silence, and I feel fairly certain that once she knows that that happens, she'll be asking it to make every kind of noise you can imagine. So we're just going to keep that between you and me for now. I have to go turn this into a show, and then I have to write 2 other shows for tomorrow and edit 3. Ooh, and record 2. So I'm going to motor. Thank you guys for being here. Sorry again for the problem at the top of the show, but thank you for sticking with it and following me over. You rock. I'll talk to you tomorrow.